I stood in front of her and asked, "Why won't you look at me?" She folded her arms and said, "Because it's easier this way." "Easier for who?" I asked. "For you or for the lie you're telling?" She sighed, checked her phone and whispered, "I've moved on. Please stop contacting me." Hearing my name leave her mouth felt wrong, like it didn't belong to me anymore. I said, "You don't sound sure." "I am sure," she replied quickly. "This is over." I laughed, but my chest burned. "You promised we wouldn't end like this." She shook her head. "People change." I remembered every night I stayed awake for her, every time I chose her over myself. I said, "I trusted you with everything I had." She avoided my eyes and said, "That was your choice." Her fingers trembled around her phone. I noticed it because I knew her too well. I said softly, "You're running?" She snapped, "I'm protecting myself." "From me?" I asked. "From feelings," she said. Silence fell between us, heavy and sharp. I realized she had already rehearsed this goodbye. I said, "If I walk away now, there's no coming back." She hesitated, then nodded. "I know." I stepped back and said, "Then forget my touch. Forget my name." She didn't answer. As I turned away, I told myself I was erased. I didn't know this moment was breaking me open, not ending me. I carried the silence with me, unaware that loss was shaping a future stronger than the love I thought died that day. I checked my phone every morning and said, "Maybe today." Today never came. No messages, no calls, only silence pressing on my chest. I replayed her voice in my head and asked myself, what did I miss? I called my best friend and said, "She wouldn't just erase me." He replied, "You're defending someone who already left." I said, "You don't know her like I do." He sighed and said, "I know what being used looks like." I hung up and blamed myself. I told myself I talked too much, loved too hard, trusted too easily. At night I whispered, "Fix this," to an empty room. Days passed. Small truths slipped out through mutual friends. Someone said, "She's happier now." Another said, "She listened to him." I asked, "Who?" They avoided the question, but his shadow appeared everywhere. A man from her past, charming words, easy promises. I heard he called me weak. I heard he said I was temporary. I laughed bitterly and said, "So that's the story now." She didn't just leave me. She rewrote us. In her version, I was the problem. In her version, walking away was brave. I sat alone and said out loud, "I won't beg you." I took a breath and added, "I won't chase you." My voice steadied when I finished, "I won't explain my worth again." I felt tired but clear, scared but awake, and I promised myself this pain would not own me, even if loneliness stayed longer than love. That night when silence finally stopped sounding like her voice. If she wanted silence, I would give her my disappearance. I stopped waiting for my phone to light up and told myself, "Stand up." Pain followed me into the gym, into empty mornings, into long nights. I said, "Use it," every time my chest tightened. I met a man who watched me train and asked, "Why do you look angry?" I answered, "Because I was left." He said, "Then stop acting broken." Those words stayed with me. I cut old habits and said no to excuses. I stopped checking her page and told myself, "You don't need answers." Some nights I sat on the floor and whispered, "Don't break." I didn't. I woke up sore, tired, and still moving. Weeks turned into months. My mentor asked, "Do you feel different?" I said, "I feel quiet." "That's strength," he replied. Small wins added up. I slept better. I spoke slower. I stopped reacting to memories. When her name crossed my mind, I said, "Not today." People noticed. I noticed more. I felt steady where I used to shake. I realized I was becoming the man she once wanted, but I didn't want approval anymore. One evening, after months of silence, my phone buzzed. I looked down and saw her name glowing on the screen. My thumb hovered. My heart stayed calm. I smiled and thought, this is what healing feels like. No rush, no fear, just control returning to me slowly, breath by breath, moment by moment. I locked the phone and said, "I choose myself," then walked away without answering. I did not look back at all this time. Finally, people said my name around her before I ever did again. A friend laughed and told me, "She asked how you're doing." I replied, "Tell her I'm fine." Another friend said, "She heard you're calm now." I shrugged and said, "Calm comes after storms." Her first message arrived days later. "Hey, I hope you're well." Nothing more. No apology. No memory. When I replied, I kept it simple. "I'm good. Hope you are too." We talked on the phone that night. She sounded careful. "You seem different," she said. I answered, I had time to learn. She asked, do you still think about us? I said, I think about lessons. She paused. You don't sound angry. I'm not, I said. I'm aware. Someone else sat beside me then, smiling quietly, reminding me who stayed. She noticed the silence and asked, are you with someone? I said, I'm supported. Her voice tightened. I didn't know you moved on. I didn't move back, I replied. She tried to laugh. I guess I made a mistake. I said nothing. I breathed slowly, counting each second, choosing restraint over reaction. I knew if I spoke, the past would rush back. Silence was my boundary now, my answer, my control. I let her sit with it because growth taught me peace does not chase what already walked away from my life completely. Seconds stretched. She whispered, I never really forgot you. I held the phone, steady and calm, and let the quiet answer for me. That pause spoke louder than love ever did, and she felt it break something she thought time had buried forever. She spoke first and said, I tried to forget you. I stayed quiet and listened. She said, I erased your number, avoided places, told myself you didn't matter. I thought you matter less now, but said nothing. Her voice cracked. Your touch stayed. Your name followed me. I asked calmly, why tell me this? She replied, because pretending failed. She went on, I chose someone safer. He left when life got hard. I nodded and said, that happens. She whispered, he vanished when I needed him. I felt no joy, only clarity. I realized karma never runs. It waits. She asked, do you hate me? I answered, I don't feel owned anymore. Silence wrapped around us. My heart argued with my mind. Part of me remembered nights, promises, laughter. Another part stood taller, guarded. She said, I miss who we were. I replied, I respect who I became. She begged softly, can we try again? I closed my eyes and weighed forgiveness against peace. Revenge felt useless. Growth already spoke for me. I said slowly, I survived losing you. She said nothing. I watched the screen glow and fade. I didn't chase closure. I chose distance. Every breath felt earned. Every step felt mine. I understood endings can be kind. This one taught me restraint, dignity, and the strength to let silence finish what love could not do anymore. The quiet stretched long and heavy. In that silence I felt free. Her regret finally had space to breathe, and my future finally had room to move forward without looking back. She messaged late and wrote, I keep thinking about us. I replied, thinking isn't the same as choosing. She called the next night and said, I miss the old you. I answered, he doesn't exist anymore. Her voice softened. You used to fight for me. I used to forget myself, I said. She started listing memories. Our trips. Your laugh. The way you held me. I said, love without respect is just attachment. She cried and asked, why are you so calm? Because I healed, I replied. She said, I made mistakes. I said, you broke trust when it mattered. She whispered, I was scared. I answered, so was I, but I stayed. The line went quiet except for her breathing. I felt familiar echoes, but they didn't move me. I wasn't numb. I was steady. She said, can you forgive me? I took a breath and said, forgiveness doesn't mean return. She begged, please don't shut the door. I didn't, I said. You closed it before. I realized I wasn't reacting anymore. I was choosing my words, my pace, my future. That was the power shift. She asked, so this is goodbye? I replied, this is me walking forward. She cried softly. I felt no victory, only release. I ended the call and said to myself, this time I'm leaving by choice. I walked away again, not abandoned, not chased, but decided, carrying peace instead of memories, and knowing some endings prove how far I have come now. I felt lighter with each step, understanding that strength is quiet and self-respect grows when you finally stop looking back. Time didn't test us the same way. It carved lessons into me and left questions in her hands. She called one last time and said, I think about you every day. I replied, thinking didn't keep us together. She said, losing you changed me. I answered, losing you rebuilt me. She paused and whispered, I regret everything. I said, regret arrives late. We talked without anger. She sounded smaller, careful. I sounded steady. I told her, I loved you once, but love isn't my identity. She asked, do you ever miss me? I said, I miss who I was before the pain. She sighed and said, I wish I had fought. I replied, I wish you had chosen. Silence followed, softer than before. I realized time punished her with memory and rewarded me with peace. I didn't need revenge. Growth already closed the door. She said, "I'm sorry." I answered, "I don't need apologies." "What do you need?" she asked. I said, "My self-respect." I breathed slowly and understood endings don't scream. They settle quietly. I didn't walk away angry or proud. I walked away whole, carrying lessons, discipline, and calm confidence earned through loss, patience, and choosing myself daily. Time taught me strength grows when silence replaces longing and peace becomes louder than unfinished conversations inside my steady heart. I ended the call and felt no rush to explain. I walked forward carrying clarity, not wounds. Love existed, but it didn't own me anymore. She remembers my name now. But I no longer wait for her to say it.